You're welcome to another tutorial. Today we are going to be making a kaftan gown with a scrub neckline and a chest attachment. So I've gone ahead to fold my fabric into four. This is the length that I'll be needing. So I folded it into four. So here is unfold. I'm going to be cutting the front and the back together. So that is why it is folded into four. The neck width I'm going to be using is going to be 4.5 inches. While the neck depth I'm going to be using 2 inches. I'll curve it into the 4.5 inches. So the shoulder I'm working with is 17 inches. I'm going to divide that into two, and that gives me 8.5 inches. I'm going to add that to the sleeve length, which is 9 inches. Then I'm going to add 1.5 seam allowance, and that totals 19 inches. So I'm going to measure 19 inches from the center here. I'm going to mark it. I'm going to measure 1 inch here for shoulder slanting, and I'm going to connect the 1 inch back to my neck width. Then from here I'm going to measure my round sleeve. The round sleeve is 16 inches. I'll divide that by 2, that is 8 inches. Then I'm going to add seam allowance 1 inch, that makes it 9 inches. Then I'm going to add ease to make it wide, because it's a kaftan, it's not supposed to be fitted, so that makes it 10 inches. So from this slanted line I'll measure 10 inches down. The next thing I'm going to do is to measure the circumference of the kaftan, that is how wide the kaftan will be. So you can either use your bust or your hip. If your hip is bigger, is the biggest circumference, you use the hip. If the bust is the biggest circumference, or your waist, anyone that is the biggest, that is what you will use for this wideness. The circumference is 52. This person is 52 inches. So I'm going to divide that into 4. That is 13 inches. So 52 divided into 4 is 13 inches. Then I'm going to add my side seam allowance. I'll be using just 1 inch. Then I'm going to add my ease. The ease is what will make it to be free on the body, because I always take fitted measurements. So I'm going to be using just 1 inch. If you want yours wide or wider, you can use more, but I just want it a bit snug on the body. So I'm going to be using 15 inches. So from the center all the way down, I'll measure 15 inches. The length I'll be needing is 52 inches. So I'm going to add half an inch to sew here, and 1.5 inch to sew the hem of the gown. So that will be 52 plus 2. That will be 54 inches. This is the shoulder, the one I measured earlier, the shoulder plus sleeve, the one I marked here. So I'm going to draw it down. And remember, the round sleeve, I measured from the slanted shoulder. I measured 10 inches for my round sleeve. So that is why I have this line. Then I'm going to curve it here into this line. I'm going to give it a curve. So that is all. I'm going to cut it out now. I'm going to separate them into two. I'm going to remove one. This one will be my front piece. The neck width remains the same, but the neck depth needs to be longer. So from the shoulder, I'm going to measure 11 inches. Because the neck scrub is going to be overlapping, so I need to make it long enough so that the head can pass through. So I'm going to be using 11 inches. Then on this line, I'm going to measure 1 inch. On this line, I'll measure 1 inch. Then connect the 1 inch to the neck width. So I'm going to cut it out. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to measure the neckline. The best thing is to join the shoulders first, then measure the neckline round. But I want to cut my neckline now, so I'm going to measure and add them together. So for the back neckline, so I have 5.5 for the back neckline, but I'm going to be sewing here with half an inch, so I'm going to say I have 5 for the back neckline. Then that 5, I'll times it by 2. That is 10 inches because this is folded. So 5 here, 5 here, that's 10 inches in length for the back. While for the front, I have 11.5 inches for the front. So I'm going to minus half an inch because I'm going to sew here with half an inch. So I'll minus half an inch. That means I have 11. So the 11, I'm going to times it by 2 because this is 2. So I have 22 inches for the front neckline and I have 10 inches for the back neckline. So 22 inches plus 10 inches, that is 32 inches. So I'm going to just add 1 inch to it. So I'll be cutting 33 inches instead of 32 inches. That is 33 inches. And the width is going to be 2.5 inches. This is what I'll be using for my neckline to make the scrub. I'm going to be using 12 inches. This is 10 inches. The slanted part is at the left hand side, so I'm going to be slanting here. The middle is 5 inches because the slant is not actually at the middle. So I'm going to measure 1 inch. I have 4 inches here, so I'm going to measure 4 inches here also and slant it. This is my front piece. I'm going to place the back piece on it, right sides facing each other, and then I'm going to sew the shoulder. I'll be using 0.5 inch to sew the shoulder. After sewing the shoulder, I'm going to fold it and locate the middle of the back neckline and give it a notch. I'll take the fabric for the neckline and then locate the middle also and give it a notch. I'll make sure to turn this fabric to the right side. I'll be using the right side, and then I'll place it on the right side of the kaftan too by the neckline where I notched. So I'll place the two notches together to align, and then I'll pin it down. I'll pin it around the neckline and sew it down. I'll be using a 0.5 inch to sew it down. After sewing it, I'm going to pin the center together so that it doesn't shift or it doesn't move. Then I'll take the chest attachment. I'm going to press it. I'll be using the 0.5 to fold all the edges. Then I'm going to fold this into two and locate the middle, the midpoint, and I'll place that at the center of my neck collar. Then I'm going to pin it down all the way around. I'm going to turn the kaftan. I need only the front. I don't want to pin it on the back piece, so I need only the front. So I'm going to turn it this way. I'll take it to the machine and I'll sew the edges round. After sewing it, I'm going to sew the side seam. So I'll be using 1 inch to sew the side seam, and I'll make sure to leave space for slits. If you want slits, this is a 3/4 gown, so I want slit around the knee. So you can use about 5 inches. You can leave space of about 5 inches or 7 inches for the slits. So to make the pocket, I'm going to measure from the shoulder. I'll measure my waist length. Then from the waist length line, I'm going to measure 7 inches for the wideness of the pockets. You can also use 6 inches, but this person is a big person, so I'll be using 7 inches for the wideness of the pocket. Then I'm going to notch the space I have created for the pocket. Just notch it by ½ inch. I've done this for both sides. This gown is folded into 4, so I've done it on the 4 sides. Then I'll sew 1 inch at the side, and when I get to that waistline, that first notch, I'm going to lock my stitch. I'll jump over to the other side and lock my stitch and sew it down. So for the slits, if you are putting a slit, because we sew it by 1 inch by the side, so the 1 inch, you are going to fold it ½ inch by ½ inch to tidy the space you have left for the slit. So you do that on all the 4 sides. Then the hem, we are folding it ½ inch by 1 inch. Then we'll sew the hem. Also the sleeve, we are going to fold it ½ inch by 1 inch also. Then we'll sew it round. You do the same for the second sleeve. So for the pocket, the inside of the pocket, I'm going to be using 12 inches by 10 inches. Then I'm going to cut 4 pieces. So this is the space I have created for the pocket by this side. Then I'm going to take the piece of fabric I just cut, the longest length, which is the 12 inches. That is where you're going to sew on the side of the gown. So you're going to turn it the right side of the pocket facing the right side of the fabric. You open the pocket, then you place it on one side. you shift the other side of the pocket. Make sure not to stitch it. Then you place it this way. So where you stop stitching, you start from there and sew it all the way down to the other end. You do the same for the second side. Make sure not to sew down that second part of the pocket. So you take the fabric and do the same. You place it on the edge and do the same again. This is what it looks like after sewing it. I only stitch it from one opening to the other end of the opening, and I used 1 inch to sew that because the side seam is 1 inch. So this is what it looks like after sewing both sides. The inside of my pocket has joining. This piece I'm using for the pocket has joining because I'm just using the pieces left from the fabric. So you don't need to have joining on yours. Just cut the 12" by 10" straight like that. So now I'm going to fold the two together, right sides facing each other, the two pockets. Then I'm going to sew a 0.25" here, that's 1/4 inch, and then I'll be sewing 1/2 inch here. I'll be sewing 1/2 inch here. Then this other side, which is by the side seam, I'll be sewing 1 inch. So where I ended the pocket entrance, where I ended the pocket sewing, I'm going to continue. I'll sew it down 1 inch at that side. I'll do the same for the second side. This is what it looks like. I've gone ahead to sew it down. This is what the pocket looks like by the side. This is the final look of the gown. I added an attachment by the sleeve. I used the same size I used for the neckline. That is what I used for the sleeve, just to beautify it a bit. This is what the back neckline looks like. I see my center piece, and then the hem, I've gone ahead to hem it. This is what it looks like. And the side slits, this is what the slit looks like. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please kindly like, share, comment, subscribe if you're new here, and click the notification bell. Thank you.